on the stage, but I'm enjoying getting to know my new friends, Adriana Machado, Bobby Cana, Mike Sarasti, and Juan Restrepo, and you can read all about them up here. They have really fascinating careers. I wanted to start actually with asking each of them how they came to do what they do, how they became innovators, really. And I'm going to start with you, Adriana.
Thank you. So it's a pleasure to be here. So I am in the business of innovation with purpose, and I think my trajectory, having worked for Intel and GE, so big companies that bring a lot of innovation to the world, has helped a lot in the sense that I understood very early in my life that innovation was very important for economic development, not only in Brazil where I come from, but in Latin America and in the world. So that has been the foundation. And now, here in Miami, I am trying to wear another hat and become an entrepreneur. So from these lenses of entrepreneurship, I think innovation is everything. And also, we have to embrace this as a mindset for everything we do. So that's where I am.
Bobby, how about you? WeWork. What an amazing organization. And it's grown so quickly. That was over such a short time. How did you happen to get interested in WeWork?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I found WeWork about 2.5 years ago, and I had always been attracted to global companies, truly global companies. I worked for PwC in their financial services division, and then moved to Bridgewater Associates, which is a hedge fund. And then through my network, got connected to some of the leadership team at WeWork, visited some locations, and absolutely fell in love with the communities that are built within. It truly operationalizes our mission of creating a life, not just a living. And when I met with the team, I went home and talked to my wife and said, listen, if I don't get the job, I need to join a member company or get myself in an environment, because what's happening there is really special. And so fast forward 2.5 years, 2 cities, 3 roles, 2 kids, and I've been, the most fulfilled, both personally and professionally. So it's been an amazing ride.
That's fantastic. Now, Mike, you have recently become the Chief Innovation Officer in Miami, and you have a huge agenda in front of you. So how did you get into this business, and tell us just a little bit about what you're envisioning for Miami?
Yeah, thank you. I'm approaching my 13th year in government right now, which is a little bit crazy. I've had the great opportunity to do a lot of things in government during that time. I came in doing data analytics for 311 call centers, then got back into web development, which I had done earlier in my career, got very involved with a very, very talented group of software developers in my previous life in Miami-Dade County that were showing me some very modern ways of software, particularly in the government sector. Everything was just rapidly changing. Around the same time, which was really the big turning point, I attended a hackathon. This is at a time before hackathons were sort of in the public space. One of our earlier co-working spaces at Lab Miami, and I showed up on a Saturday, and there were like 200 volunteers ready to tackle civic problems, and that idea that people were tackling civic issues outside of government just blew my mind, and there was like a sea of technologists ready to stand beside me. I ended up becoming an advocate within government for these types of practices. About 2.5 years ago, the city of Miami approached me and says, we want to be doing a lot of process improvement throughout the city. We want to tackle problems in a new way, and we also know you're doing all this tech stuff, so we'll let you do that too. And the idea of innovation officers in cities were starting to become a thing, and I said, well, you're kind of describing an innovation officer. It's like, great, let's create an innovation office. I tell people all the time, it's not important that it's me doing that work, but it's a tremendous signal that the city of Miami had the first chief innovation officer in the region. It sends, I think, a signal to the other co-working spaces. Like what Bobby was talking about, it's just this great energy you see that you really want to be a part of. So I've been doing that for a couple years, and then in May I became Director of Innovation and Technology for the city. So it's the new charge is weaving in all these innovation practices with a more traditional technology approach now.
And Juan, how about Uber Eats? How did you ever come to work for Uber Eats?
Well, I've been with Uber for almost 4 years now. I actually don't come from a tech background or transportation background. I actually got involved with Uber basically as an amazed user. So let me tell you a story there. So I was coming back from Europe after doing some studies there, and I got a chance to go to Panama for work. And because of my work, I was traveling around Latin America and going back to my hometown, Bogota, a lot. I was used to like having my car there, but then as I came back, I didn't have one, so I was like having a lot of trouble moving around. I tried like getting taxis or like driving taxis in the street, but I was unlucky. And then I remember that my dad, who's a 74-year-old guy, actually mentioned the fact that there was a very nice application called Uber that I should just download it. So I did it, and in less than 5 minutes, I was picked up by an awesome, very kind person in a very clean white SUV, and I was blown away. Then I came back to Panama, and a couple of months later, Uber launched there. It really changed my life to a point that I got rid of my car. So I said, like, I really want to be a part of this. I truly believed about the positive impact that technology such as Uber could make in cities and changing the way cities were moving around. So lucky for me, there was a general manager position in Panama. I applied and I got it. Spent 2 years there, where I was able to see a big transformation of the city, a city that you're really in trouble if you don't have a car. And then I started like getting curious about like different like businesses that the company was doing, and this is a company that like starts up like a lot of businesses one again and again and again. So I started get like to know about like Uber Eats and the ability for us to really give people like their time back, as well as like continue helping a restaurant industry to reinvent and evolve themselves. So that's my story.
That's a great story. So Bobby, WeWork has grown really rapidly over the last several years, and you're opening some new places now, right? Can you talk about those a little bit? And also, what do you think is driving the demand for this WeWork space?
Sure. We have about 287 locations across 77 cities and 23 countries. We operate in about 18 million square feet and are opening about 1 million square feet a month. So if you look at just here in the greater Miami area, we have 3 locations up until next year. We then open 2, one in downtown, the security building, and another one in Coral Gables. And so the southeast for us is exploding and keeping pace with the rest of our organization. I think what you're seeing is a macro shift in the way people are wanting to work. And so for us, traditionally it had been smaller companies, startups, entrepreneurs that were attracted to this co-working space, yearning for a place to go, for a sense of community. And I think now you're seeing, and what we're doing is advising larger enterprise companies. And so our fastest growing member segment is enterprise companies, where 25% of our Fortune 500 are actually members. And they're looking for the same type of community and collaboration that happens within our space. So it's really just a testament to, the colossal macro shift that we're seeing in terms of how people are really thinking about working, and they're yearning for more. I mean, working with purpose rather than just a brick and mortar place to go.
And you were also talking about some new things that WeWork is considering offering to people who are using your space. I mean, making work-life balance even better.
Sure, we're all about flexibility, and that is rooted in, our memberships that we have. You can get a membership for a day, a month, and then we obviously have commitments. And so flexibility is a key component of it. The community is a huge attraction point for all of our members. The networking, being able to be connected on our network platform, which connects all of those locations through our member network. But in terms of the verticals that we also have, you probably heard about WeGrow, which is the school that we launched in New York. Flatiron School is a coding school that we acquired last year. That we're opening up the first in Atlanta in November. And you'll see more of those verticals like Rise, our wellness platform, disseminate into the regions. And because we see this as more than just working. We understand that people are demanding more of that work-life balance that you're talking about. And so we want our communities and our buildings to be dynamic. And so those offerings are really accretive to our model.
So Adriana, here, I have a question for you. You were the CEO of GE Brazil, and you left that job to do innovation. What do you think is that a city like Miami or other cities need most now in terms of innovation?
Well, cities have become the big player in the world today. We saw yesterday Salim Ismail talking about city-states concept. I totally agree with that. I think cities is where we already live, and 70% of the populations are going to live in cities very near in the near future. And that's where we expect to have the customer experience. So that's where we expect the services and the products to reach us. And that's where we have collaboration happening. And then we shouldn't look at cities as just the geography, the physical, the boundaries, the physical boundaries. But with digital, we can actually connect all over the world with other people and form teams and stuff like that. So it's the trend for urban, right, that is there. The digital aspect that's connecting cities, but also making cities connected places for innovation to rise, and the demand, so where citizens are. So I think cities will be more and more the biggest player, and cities are the ones who can actually solve the problems we face today. So let's say climate change, for instance, right? So I love the networks that already exist, like C40 or the 100 Resilient Cities. So there is a good methodology behind it, helping cities understand what their stresses and shocks are, and then have an agenda that addresses those issues and that builds resilience. And resilience is also another important aspect that is connected with innovation very, very closely, because change, volatility is the new reality everywhere in our personal lives, in our work, in our cities. So if we don't embrace change in a way that we don't panic, we don't just resist, but embrace change and use change to the benefit that we're trying to promote. I think Susanna mentioned it in her panel here. I mean, there are so many problems there. Just pick a problem, right? And innovate and try to solve it. Build resilience. Help the cities, really become this ecosystem of innovation with big companies, small companies, working space that promote collaboration. And that's make cities really be this new player in the world that will actually help us get there.
That's a great segue, Mike, to what you're doing here in Miami with around data and technology. And speaking of connecting people within a city to the information that they have to have, especially in the case of disasters, right, or other needs. Can you talk a little about what that vision is?
Yeah, I'll try to follow up. Adriana should have just dropped the mic right after that discussion. That was so on point. I mean, this idea that particularly when we're talking about technology, it is so easy to get caught up in the shiny toy and caught up in the tech, and there's a lot of geeks in the room, myself included, and you're like, oh, that's so, that code is so beautiful. But the reality is that what we're doing here is trying to solve problems for people and really keeping that focus on people. People is so important. One thing we have been trying to do to make sure that we are framing problems the right way, to be more resilient, to make sure we get the right kind of the technology, to make sure that we are looking at the right kind of data, is upskilling our workforce so that we understand the concepts that are needed to find the right data. A lot of times we get in cities presented by partners, by vendors, by people looking to add something to the ecosystem, but we are not good at cities at framing our own problems. So we have been doing a training on Innovation Academy that we've been running now. Today's actually the 1-year anniversary of the program. We've trained 200 employees throughout the city of Miami on innovation practices. And the idea is that this is not, and we frame innovation not to be technology. Innovation really is a mindset that we're trying to make sure that our workforce understands, to make them be able to frame problems better, to make sure that we know that it's supported supported by data, that we're data-driven, so that when we're making these partnerships with the private sector, that we're making much better decisions, that we are upskilling the workforce appropriately to be able to tackle our big problems. Because issues like resilience are incredibly massive, they're incredibly complex, they're difficult to get our heads around. If we're not training our workforce to be able to frame those problems appropriately, we're in some big trouble. As a result, to connect it to the resilience topic in particular over the summer, we had this idea that if we provide residents better data about what resilience is and what climate change is and what sea level rise means for them and their specific home, over time they will make better decisions about the value of their property. So instead of just talking about resilience for Miami, we would talk about resilience means for Mike or for Adriana. In order to test this, we take this out on the field, and we've been doing a ton of user testing with different prototypes and really getting those reactions early on before we make these big significant investments. So that is how we are making the choices about where we put sensors in the future, what kind of data we're looking for, what kind of data supports the problem and the mission at hand, and making sure that that's coming from the workforce and from the communities that need it.
So testing, Juan, you at Uber Eats have a really interesting pilot program going on. Can you talk about your project with Starbucks?
For sure. So one of the very interesting things about Miami is that convenience is something that really resonates with people, and then that's one of the big reasons why Uber Eats has been very successful here. What we try to do is get what people want at the moment they want, and they want coffee, right? So we partnered with Starbucks to launch a pilot here in Miami with the intention of co-learning about what's the best way to deliver a warm cup of coffee in a very short period of time. It's not an easy task to do, and companies such as Starbucks really value two very important things: quality of the product and how that is being delivered to customers, and also their in-store experience. So working with them to understand what's the best way to plug in a very busy in-store or in a very busy store, while also making sure that the product arrives at a good in good quality, something that we have been testing for a couple of months now, and we're very excited to see the success of this at a point that we have been able to deliver coffee in less than 30 minutes on average. We've seen very interesting joint business goals with them, in the sense that if you go to a Starbucks, you may notice that the busiest time of day is during the morning. However, when you check our data, what we're seeing is more than 60% of the orders are happening after 11 a.m., which means we are actually increasing their own volume, they're increasing orders, and they're tapping into different use cases. In the case of Miami, people love their cafecito, right? People love a cup of coffee, an afternoon boost.
Are they having caffeinated coffee or decaffeinated coffee at 11 o'clock at night?
No, it's 11 o'clock a.m. So
a.m.,
what we're
okay,
seeing
good.
is
Was
a
wondering.
huge increase in orders post that time. So an afternoon peak, which actually is driving a lot of additional source of business for them, and then we're actually tapping into a need that our customers in Miami have. So very excited about it.
Can I just, as a follow-up, are these largely people who either can't get it nearby or don't want to make it themselves or can't because of where they are? I mean, who are the people who are ordering this coffee this way?
I mean, there's a series of consumers for sure. And again, it's about convenience. People are willing to walk sometimes, but people are busy. We live in urban areas where time is not, it's a luxury not everybody has, right? So when you think about that afternoon point, you may be in the office, you really want a cup of coffee, but you don't have the time to go out and have it, so you just basically can order it and you have it in 30 minutes. So the good thing with partnerships such as this one is their store footprint is pretty wide across the city, so you're going to be able to fulfill those orders across the city around the city without compromising the quality and the speed of service.
And I want to ask you another question before about work that you're doing with virtual restaurants. Can you describe what that
Yeah,
is?
that's
How does it work?
a really fascinating concept. We're very passionate about it. So if you open the app here in Miami, and you may see restaurants such as MIA Wings or Italian Comfort, for example, in Fort Lauderdale. You're gonna order. You're gonna have your food delivered in a pretty fast pace with high quality, and you may wanna go to the actual restaurant and just like leave the experience. But guess what? It doesn't exist. There's no physical MIA Wings. The thing is that with the data that we collect on an everyday basis with our customers, we are able to identify what are the main trends, what are the main food items that people are looking for at a city level, but also at a neighborhood level, and we pair that with the current restaurant offering that we have. But sometimes we just don't have the specific cuisine type, but we have restaurants that, because of their own ingredients or the way they prepare food, they can easily make it. So let me give you an example. Let's say sushi brands, like brands such as like Sushi Maki, Pawbelly, Moshi Moshi, you name it. They have a significant footprint around the city, and they are very well at like doing sushi. Like they have rice, they have raw fish, veggies, etc. And we see an upward trend of food items such as like bowls or poke bowls, right? So the idea here is to partner with them to spin off additional concepts, additional restaurants. So it is actually a win-win situation to a point that they have an extra restaurant within the same space. So there's no incremental capex cost, no incremental facilities or technology around it, and they serve an additional consumer base. The success has been so big that there are restaurants that the virtual one is actually outperforming the physical one, and even more in a couple of cases, what we've seen is the restaurant owner actually substituting entirely the physical one with the virtual one, not saying that the virtual was created in Uber Eats and now it's a physical store.
It's fascinating. Time is going really fast here, so here's a question I'd like to throw out to all of you, and one of you can decide which to answer. But there's so much excitement around technology, obviously, and yet there's also a certain amount of fear that people have around technology and how it's going to take control of their lives and change life so radically that we're not going to even recognize it anymore. What do you say, Bobby? How about you? To people who are fearful about how technology is going to evolve in the future.
Sure. I would say we can fear technology or embrace it as a culture that it's here to stay, and it's use it for positive advancement more so than a negative. And so when we think about WeWork, I mean, everything for us is rooted in community. But we use technology as inputs and to educate ourselves and validate our assumptions on how we're thinking and analyzing our buildings, the macro trends of cities, and that then is a positive output into our design and how we're programming our spaces to the events that we hold within each building. And so for us, technology in that standpoint in terms of the design and build is amazing, and that's something that we're also providing for some of these larger enterprise companies when we're thinking about our Power by We vertical. And the second piece to that is we use technology to connect all of our members. And so that app that I talked about before, which is our member network, has the ability for a member in Miami to communicate and connect with a member across the globe in Tokyo. Or if they're looking for space to either book on a business trip or looking to expand and flex in their scale of growth, they have the ability to actually book or have that space in a different city. And so that connection and using that technology platform for us is actually a positive thing.
Adriana, you ever thought about that?
Yeah, you should not fear. I mean, technology is here to stay. AI, robotics, automation, it's here. We need it to solve the problems we have. So I think one important aspect of it is no fear, embrace, use it to your benefit, and understand that 51% of the activities that we currently have in the market today, like jobs, are going to be replaced. So why don't we just plan for that, right? So training, education, learning new skills is very important. So companies, governments, they have to start looking at the workforce and start offering the right conditions for people to learn new skills and adapt to the change that's coming. And us, I mean, every one of us as individuals, we have to embrace this concept of continuous learning, or never stop to learn and learn a new task or new skill. So I think no fear and plan, and really make this effort to learn new things. And I think this is a good segue for our friend there, because he said this wonderful academy that is training government workers to embrace innovation, and that's, I think, the right way to do it. Don't panic. Use AI, robotics, automation to our benefit, but learn new things.
Mike, I have a question for you. Speaking of AI and innovation here in the city, can you talk a little bit about how you're dealing with the issue of climate change here in Miami, or what role technology and the data you collect can have some impact on that?
Yeah, let me touch real quick on this issue of privacy, though, because I think it's an important one not to skip over. Certain governments are being very proactive about this, and we're at the local level and hiring positions like chief privacy officers. I think thinking about that is extremely important, because we are generating data at a scale that we've never seen before. And government has it's a weird player in that, because so much of the information that we see and passes through us is public record. So we have to have policies in place that protect personally identifiable information. On one end, we're absolutely trying to create more open systems, whether through open data or open APIs that people can, and the community can build things on top of. But as you become a partner, some of you are entrepreneurs here, and become partners with government, how do we create some systems in place where the public at large does feel safe, and that we are not, as government, in our position to be open and accessible, or are selling all of that to you. When we go into, there are certain neighborhoods in particular that don't want smart cities and don't want sensor technology, because they associate that obviously with Big Brother or the police watching them. So I think we have to be very, very sensitive to that. We are taking a look at privacy policies. To your question on resilience, we are doing a number. Just this week, we had Code for Miami, our local civic tech brigade, operating out of the Cambridge Innovation Center, and Moonlighter, one of our local maker spaces, that were assembling flood sensors to test and pilot and put all across town, and start thinking about how these devices all around can start feeding, and how we record that data, how that data is used by our university partners, how we as municipal government would feed that in. So on one end, fascinating and great, and the group has been so awesome to help and pilot these things that we might be able to do at scale within government. On the flip side, it opens the door, I guess anyone can build a sensor. How do you start to protect these IoT devices? How do you make that sort of official part of government flowing in? I think there are very real questions that we haven't solved yet, which again is why we're trying to create this culture of prototyping and piloting within city government, so that we can test these on a very small scale, get a grasp on those things before we're putting them all over the city and spying on all of you. Hopefully.
I neglected to say, by the way, if you'd like to ask a question, you can do it through the email, or you're welcome to step up there and ask it from the audience. So please feel free to do that. In the meantime, I want to talk about sort of the idea of scary, maybe. And we were talking earlier about possibility of drones delivering packages, including food. Do you see that any time in the near future?
I mean, I do see that in the future, for sure. It's something that needs to be that we need to continue developing, for sure. But it's something that it will become a reality. And I think, as Bobby said, we have to embrace technology, and we need to work with governments, and we need to work with regulators to make sure that we are providing a safe service across the board. So for sure.
So it's possible.
It is.
Could be. I wanted to ask each of you too, what you see, in the future. What if you imagine 5 years from now, 10 years from now? I mean, how does the technology and the life of the city look to Mike? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, things like drones are coming. I have one of my counterpart in South Bend, Indiana, just told me that he's like, you need to get your drone license, because I got my drone license and we are doing tests with police and what that means for security. I mean, there are going to be devices flying, and how you change, how we work with the FAA to create channels and where these drones fly, and what it means for cities and streets, and vehicles won't look like they do today because they won't need to look the way that they look today. We are on the verge of, I think, very, very significant transformation that it's very important that we participate in and look. There are so many cues and things that we are going to want to make sure that they stay related to our real physical world. We don't want to have and create something that is completely disconnected. And if we're not participating in that, and then we are not helping shape that, the world will be so unrecognizable that we might lose that human connection. And at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want technology to help us feel more connected and help us feel more part of our physical surrounding, and hopefully create more compassion. So I think that promise is still there. I'm seeing a lot of re-energized, but a lot of great people that are doing awesome work in cities.
How does that work in the workplace, do you think, Bobby, going forward? What do you see as the next innovation coming, or the way in which the workplace will further be transformed?
So if you look at the latest projections of workers and urbanization, by 2050, 2.5 billion people will be added to major cities across the world. And so unless we talk about rezoning, it's going to be very difficult to expand these cities. And so companies, landlords, and just citizens have to do more with less space. And we've been doing that for the last 8 years. So our typical model, we do a third of the square footage of what you would typically see in a traditional working environment. So if it's 150 square feet for an employee, we do 50 square feet. And the reason for that is that we add communal spaces for collaboration and to enhance that connectiveness and enhance that community. And then you layer on top the technology piece to drive the collaboration and drive that connectiveness. That's the future. I think we're not going to lose the human component to it, because people still really want that, they yearn for it. But there's going to be added technologies that's going to be able to have us think smarter, design smarter, and really create an environment that is truly connected, both physical and virtual. And so for us, we're in the process of creating the largest physical and social network in the world.
Adriana, I'm interested in what you're looking forward to as you continue your organization and innovating, and what kind of innovation that really excites you.
Yeah. In Briyah Institute, we're all about innovation with purpose, as I said before. So what I think is needed in the world today is to see the pace of innovation and technology development is increasing now, and it's increasing exponentially, right? So we are seeing technologies emerge that were not even dreamt about in the past. But the challenge is the speed of applying that technology to solve the problems. So I think that, that's why I always call this attention. So we need innovation with purpose, because we need to be able to deliver that solution to problems faster. So one thing that I am working on right now is brain health. As we live longer, as we age, and unfortunately dementia has increased so much lately. By 2050, we're going to have over 150 million people with dementia if we don't do something to stop it. So wellness, prevention, using all the knowledge we have from biology and other hard sciences to improve people's life is so important. And yet, as it was said before, more and more people are living in cities. And 40% of the population live in the coast. And the sea is rising. So we can't just sit here and wait for the sea to rise to then come up with solutions for coastal cities. And me, living in Miami, we already, have an opportunity because of the pressure we're facing to be the stewards of this process. And last but not least, I also saw a study that's very important about biodiversity. And that demonstrates that right now, cities, because of our consumption habits and production habits, contributes 80% to the carbon emissions in the world right now. But 60% of the lands that are going to become urban until 2030 are yet to be built. So there is a great opportunity for us to change cities and move them from being, carbon emitters to carbon sinks with, the technology that we have for green roofing and other technologies. If we take into consideration that it's possible to build the 60% of new land, understanding how to conserve biodiversity, and using technology in the mix, we can actually turn this game around. So I hope that we will be applying the technology that's coming faster to cities to address the problems we already know exist. And if you don't know what the problems are, look at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We have 17 goals there that already tell us what needs to be done. So here in Miami, we have the United Nations Association. I am a volunteer there at the board. I invite everybody here to become a member and join us. Let's understand what this agenda is, and let's work, each one of us, small, medium, and companies, governments, and let's start addressing those issues with technology faster.
Juan, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, we are in a fascinating moment to start changing the way we address climate change, and Uber has a role to play there and has been playing a role. Think about Uber Pool, for example. If you think about that, what we're trying to do here is through technology is pairing people that are sharing a destination together, so they share a car. 2017 alone, we had over a billion trips that happened in a pool trip, meaning that it's basically a huge savings of kilometers, gasoline, and for sure gas emissions. More than 20% of our trips in the cities that we're offering pool are happening on pool. That's one thing. We're also very excited about a plan that we're launching in London, for example, a clean air plan. Our mission there is, our vision is to replace every single car for electric cars by 2025. And by that, what we're doing is we're charging a clean air fee of 15 cents per mile with the intention of helping our partner drivers to convert from a gasoline car to an electric car. So the intention is to raise up to 200 million pounds to be a part of that. Also, if we think about the Eats, our Eats business, there's many things that we're really willing to make a contribution and a change. With our data and working more closely with the restaurants, we're going to be able to help them be more efficient in the way they manage stock, their inventories, and therefore we have a role to play in the food waste part. If we think about packaging as well, there are a lot of opportunities to have cleaner, environmentally friendly packaging that we're willing to collaborate on that.
Mike, you were going to say something too. I thought you were going to jump into.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that again, the data piece is so important here and talking about data, and we're actively trying to collaborate a ton around building a centralized resilience repository of data that will help our partners, because this is all about collaboration and making it easier and being able to move faster, and us being able to have these conversations around data with the universities, with the Ubers of the world, with the WeWorks, being able to all these participants being able to engage is really what's going to save us at the end of the day from the rising seas.
Bobby, right.
I think it's all about taking initiative, and so for us as a company, we think of ourselves as being connected to something that's greater than ourselves. And so if the environment obviously is a crucial component to that, now more than ever with the scale and growth that we have and with the amount of locations that we have throughout the globe, we understand of our footprint. And so by 2023, we've committed to go carbon neutral, and we're reducing all single-source plastics in all of our locations. And so it's all...
I ask you about plastics.
It's all about doing your part. And I think it's from individuals all the way up through large corporations. It's how you can get involved and how you can start just one step forward in making sure that this environment is sustaining the growth that we have, and it's around for generations to come.
Well, it seems like this could be a great collaboration here. Thank you so much.
Test our website outside if you want to participate in our user testing around the corner.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Get involved.